Oh, yes, everybody, I'm live and I'm wearing a white shirt, so I am blinding the camera right now. I'm thinking it's trying to adjust. Hello, everybody. Good evening. How are you doing? My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I am not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church, and I'm not trying to get you to donate to any special cause. What I'm trying to do is just kind of give you some insight, a look into the look through the eyes of what I consider myself to be an average Christian, giving my takes on things that happen within the Bible and things that happen day to day, current events, different issues facing the church, etc. Giving you kind of a clue and an example of who somebody you might run into should you join a church. If you are thinking about pursuing a relationship with Christ, if you're curious, if you want to know if there's something more to you beyond this existence on this earth, welcome to the program. That's why I started this show, is to give you kind of a look into it. You should want to be running into somebody who understands that, or a congregation that understands that we are all broken people, that we are all flawed people, and approaching Christ from an attitude of humility, and that's kind of the hence flawed man of God. Me trying to be here to talk to you about a lot of Christian things, but also with the understanding that I too am broken, flawed, deeply flawed, and a sinner, but loved by Christ, just like you, and saved through His grace. And that is the great and awesome thing that is beyond words. So even though I'll try to put things into words at times, there really are no words to describe the selflessness, the love, the example. I don't know. I like I said, can't put words to it. That Christ showed when he as God made flesh and living life as a man, was nailed to a cross and crucified for our sins. So we are currently doing read-throughs of the Bible, and we have been in Deuteronomy. And hold on, let me respond to something real quick. It has been I've been tired today, guys. Been very tired today. Had some stuff. Just a lot of stuff taxing my brain, taxing my energy today at work, and just one of those days where you just on the when you get home and you're just like, man, I am drained. I am totally drained. So I sat on the couch. Sat on the couch with my kids and promptly went to sleep, with one laying on top of me, and dozed for about an hour. So I'm still a little groggy from that, but that's great. That's a great thing when your kids are small enough where they can still kind of cuddle and do those kind of things. It's awesome. So that's kind of how my day's been going. What are we, Wednesday? We're halfway done. Tomorrow night is our last broadcast of the evening or of the week, and after that we'll have Eric Roland on. So right now we are going through with Deuteronomy, and what we've seen from Deuteronomy has been a beautiful retelling by Moses to the people, the Israelites, right before he's sending them over into Israel, or over into the Promised Land that will become Israel. I'm just giving them the warning. Hey guys, we've traveled through this. We've made this journey together. We made this journey together. Please, remember the things that have caused us grief and ticked off God that we've been doing. Don't do these things. Do the things that He likes. Do the things that He loves. Follow the very few rules that He has put in place. Appreciate what He's given us. Seems pretty cut and dry, right? He knows because he's been leading these folks for over 40 years. He's been leading them for 40 years And so he knows I'm telling these people this, they're not going to listen. They're not going to listen, but I got to do my best. I've got to do my best because if I don't, I don't really love them. It's kind of like God. God knows that we're not going to listen to him from time to time. Knows that we're not going to listen to him, and still he tries to tell us. He tries to give us even to this day. As you go through life, you're going to see where he might give you a gentle or a not so subtle nudge to remind you, hey, don't do that, or hey, I need you to go do something. So um, we are gonna go, and I guess it lines up with the kind of day I've been having. We're going to talk about some stuff that is kind of um, not everybody's favorite thing to talk about. Food rules, just briefly, here. We're going to go through Deuteronomy 14 and 15, and we're going to go through this because we're going to be talking about some other stuff that makes people uncomfortable. Clean and unclean food. Chapter 14, you are the children of the Lord your God. Do not cut yourselves or shave the front of your heads for the dead. Cutting, I guess, don't cut yourself, don't mutilate yourself. I guess shaving the front of your head was a thing. Do not cut yourselves or shave the front of your heads for the dead. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. Out of all the peoples on the face of the earth, the Lord has chosen you to be his treasured possession. Do not eat any detestable thing. These are the animals you may eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. You may eat any animal that has a divided hoof and that chews the cud. However, of those that chew the cud or that have a divided hoof, you may not eat the camel, the rabbit, or the hyrax. Although they chew the cud, they do not have a divided hoof. They are ceremonially unclean for you. The pig is also unclean. Although it has a divided hoof, it does not chew the cud. You are not to eat their meat or touch their carcasses. Okay, so getting into food rules, and this gets a little, this really gets, over my head on the reasoning behind it, and why we don't practice this today. This is something that is still practiced by the folks who are Jewish and Messianic Jews, along with uh, some Christian sects that don't that choose to adhere to these rules. I know a gentleman. He was actually an intern at our church for a summer, and he would not. I mean, basically, when we wanted to go out to eat, all we went to go eat is Buffalo Wild Wings because he would eat chicken, and that was pretty much it. We would eat chicken, and that was it. He observed biblical food laws. He was very much a believer that Old Testament laws were almost all still in play, which probably makes it a little bit difficult for him in some cases, especially once he's married, because um, we don't send our women out of the out of the house when they are menstruating. But so this is another one that's a little complex, and other people have got other apologetics that really explain um, why we don't do it anymore. There is some scriptural basis in the New Testament that that points to that reasoning, but I don't have it on hand. I haven't researched it, but I know that it's there, and it is something. It is something I want to get somebody on to talk about more in depth because it is kind of a big thing. And again, something that other people that even some Christians still look at and still adhere to. But hey, look, pigs are unclean. Man, I don't like that. That's not what I like. I like to see the venison still on the menu, boys, though. Let's see. Of all the creatures living in the water, you may not eat any that has fins and scales. Or you may eat any that has fins and scales, but anything that does not have fins and scales you may not eat. For you it is unclean. Um, I think people think that shrimp falls into that category, but it looks like I guess you could consider. I guess that's not. These aren't scales. Shrimp don't have scales. They are kind of scaly. I don't like shrimp. Um, they're bugs. I don't eat bugs. Um, but obviously that takes lobster and crab out of the mix. You may eat any clean bird, but these you may not eat: the eagle, America; the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture; the red kite, the black kite; any kind of falcon; any kind of raven; the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull; any kind of hawk; the little owl, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl; the osprey, the cormorant, the stork; any kind of heron; the hoopoe; and the bat. The bat. Very important to remember that, considering what we just the last 2 years and what was going on in China. I know they said it. I know some people said it came out of the lab. Other people said it came from eating weird things like bats. That's gross. That's gross. Any kind of raven. This is an interesting story. Interesting side note. I've mentioned I wasn't. I was in the army. I did deploy to Iraq. The base that I was at in Iraq, um, when there were um, huge, huge ravens there, and it was really weird because one day most of the ravens just you didn't see them, and then along for a few weeks, chicken wings were on the menu, and they were smaller than you'd think they would be. I'm not saying that we were eating ravens, but it was highly coincidental. And I guess anything tastes good fried. All flying insects are unclean to you. Do not eat them. But any winged creature that is clean, you may eat. Do not eat. So this is remember. So I think if we go in to the New Testament, we find that John the Baptist was living off a locust. So, do not eat anything you find already dead. You may give it to the foreigner residing in any of your towns, and they may eat it. Or you may sell it to any other foreigner. But you are a people holy to the Lord your God. Don't eat roadkill. That's disgusting. That's especially true to folks out living in the sticks in the South. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk, which seems weird. Like, not weird that you would do it or that it would be against the rules. It just feels weird like you would do that. Seems a little wrong. Tithes. Tithes is something that makes people feel uncomfortable. I've been open about this in the past. Tithing is something that I struggle with. Not that I struggle to believe it. The struggle that I lack the commitment to put forward the appropriate amount of income aside to God that I should be. It is a failing of mine. It is one that I need. I'm working to rectify, but and it's one that's difficult. It's difficult to talk about tithing because it is something that some churches will hammer on at an unhealthy and uncomfortable amount. Whenever you talk about people's money, you're discussing something that's very personal to them. Income, in many cases, is a direct reflection of work that people are putting into the life that they've built for themselves, and it's something that they've earned. What we forget oftentimes, what we lose in that, is that what we earn and the successes we have, we're supposed to um, give joy to God and credit to God for what He has enabled us to do. for the blessings he's bestowed to us for. And if you think, well, God didn't help me, um, God didn't help me, um, cut down these trees. God didn't help me do this accounting work. God didn't help me make that sale. God did send his only begotten Son to die on a cross for your sins and give you grace and everlasting life. Should you so have faith in Him? So He did do that. So tithing is appropriate. Giving thanks is appropriate, and it doesn't go back just here to Deuteronomy. It goes back all the way to the beginning when we see Cain and Abel, um, kind of basically bringing God the best of what they had, giving blessing. Because even though their parents had been cast out of Eden, they were still blessed with very long life and great ability. They're still masters of the planet, right? And masters of all the other things on the earth. And so Abel Abel mastered livestock and Cain mastered the fields, and each would bring them a tenth of what, or give them a fraction of what they brought. Now Abel brought the best, and Cain brought just some. And tithing is kind of something that you can see. You can cut it with a knife a lot of times. The uncomfortable air in a church when the pastor starts talking about income. I know that I've heard that some churches hammer on it weekly or every other week, or that's what they do. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that it's important to treat people like adults when it comes to finances, and remind them, maybe quarterly, maybe twice a year or so, about the importance of tithing. What we used to do, at least in my church, when it came about to the time for offering, and you pass the offering plate, that all went away. And during COVID, they started, we just started saying, hey, we've got these boxes where you can put your offering in an envelope, or you can pay online. A lot of people pay online now. Put an offering in an envelope, drop it in the box, and go from there. So anyway, but you when you pass the offering down around, when the time came for offering, the pastor comes up there and be like, hey, look, it's important to remember God's given us a lot, and if you have anything to give back, here is your opportunity. Not hammering tithing, not telling you, hey, if you don't pay, we got to pay for the lights to get on. I've got to get paid as a pastor. This whole place could go away if you don't tithe. No, it's just like, hey, offering plates going around. If you've got something to give. If not, hey, gospel is free in many respects from that standpoint. So tithing makes people uncomfortable, and again, I think it's important for a church to take that into consideration. Some people are very tone deaf. I thankfully belong to a church where that is not the case, but we do talk about it from time to time. Like I said, quarterly, every 6 months, probably important to do so. Just kind of a reminder, hey, should be doing this, folks. You should be doing this. Anyway, so here we go. Tithes. Be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. Let me start from the beginning. Be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place He will choose as a dwelling for His name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God always. But if that place is too distant, and you have been blessed by the Lord your God and cannot carry your tithe, because the place where the Lord will choose to put His name is so far away, He gave you so much blessing, you have trouble transporting it from point A to point B. I like that. God has has blessed you immensely. You may have trouble taking it someplace. Then exchange your tithe for silver, and take the silver with you, and go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Use the silver to buy whatever you like: cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you wish. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of the Lord your God, and rejoice. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. Again, when we're talking about the Levites, we're talking about the priests, kind of like tithing to the church. remember them. They're there on their own. They don't collect anything. They just sit there preaching the word, doing all the heavy lifting. They get some good fringe benefits, but at the same time, don't be a Levite and screw up, because that's when the heavy hand of God comes down and gets you. So, so it's good to be, toss a coin to your Levite. At the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce and store it in your towns, so that the Levites who have had no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. I like this. There's so much good stuff in these laws from God. But when they talk about this, at the end of everything, bring all your tithes that you were going to give, and instead of using it yourself, give it to the priests, give it to the refugees, give it to the orphans and the widows, and the less fortunate, and let them partake in all of that once every 3 years, right? That's not bad. That's not bad. That's still enjoying the fruits of your labor, but at the same time, helping out the folks in the community who aren't as blessed as you have been, with who have not been as worldly blessed as you have been, or who may have been punished, but but they're living past their punishment. Deuteronomy. So now we get into something a little bit nicer, right? Chapter 15, the year for canceling debts. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. Such a great idea. This is how it is to be done. Every creditor shall cancel any loan they have made to a fellow Israelite. They shall not require payment from anyone among their own people, because the Lord's time for canceling debts has been proclaimed. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your fellow Israelite owes you. However, there need be no poor people among you, for in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you, if only you fully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow all these commandments I'm giving you today. For the Lord your God will bless you as he promised, and you will lend to many nations, but borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you. This is the reminder here, folks. Again, and I like this. Now, we don't do this today, and we can talk about usury and all this other stuff and kind of becoming a culture of debt, but that's kind of where we are. Not the intention of God. Look, if you've got a debt, you make that loan, you pay it back, you do your best to pay it back, but you're not going to live in debt forever, right? That's not the intention. That's not what goes on in a healthy society. And as we see, that we do have some very unhealthy things in our fiscal nature and fiscal practices in America that are unhealthy. And but this is what God's saying. Look, you need this time where you just, like a year where you just forgive everything. Okay, at this time, this allotment, boom, we're canceling that debt. You've made your payments and everything. Now it's time to clear them away. If anyone is poor among your fellow Israelites in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted towards them. Rather, be open-handed and freely lend to them whatever they need. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The 7th year, the year for canceling debts, is near, so that you do not show ill will towards the needy among your fellow Israelites and give them nothing. They may then appeal to the Lord against you, and you will be found guilty of sin. Give generously to them, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed toward your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. This sounds like a contradiction, because in the passage before that, we see he's talking about there need be no poor people among you, for in the land of he will richly bless you. But he's reminding you, if only you fully obey the Lord your God in our camp, careful follow these commands I'm giving you today. He knows that's not going to be the case. So there will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, because of that, look, we're a community of God's people, living together. So we need to come together. Some of us are going to be very richly blessed because we are righteous, because we are, making good decisions, and because our families are intact. But there are going to be people who don't exist that way. The orphans, the refugees, those kind of things. They will be around, and those who have been punished by God, those who are seeking forgiveness. That doesn't mean that you need to be ungiving to them, especially when it gets close to that seventh year for canceling debt. No, give freely. It's really talking about charity here in many ways, but not just open, just like um, just not just complete charity. You're giving a person an opportunity to pay you back, um, and kind of put forth that effort to pay you back. So, I mean, it's not outlawing any type of loan. It's encouraging that, I think, in that case, but it's not. It's trying to encourage a loan for community, instead of a loan for personal gain, right? Again, we can talk about usury, but it's going to get it can get real nasty real quick because we just I mean, it is, most of us live with a mortgage or a credit card payment or a student loan or a car payment of some sort. And, that's the way a lot of people live. And a lot of it's due to choice, but a lot of us go into these, get into these agreements foolishly. And predatory lending is a thing. There is people, there are people, credit card companies are famous for this, just trying to get people to come in and spend more money with them. There is an end. Obviously, their ends are to make money, but again, I don't think I don't think God intended for there to be companies or people out there who solely made a living off of um, lending things to other people, especially when they don't give you a year for canceling debts. And I'm not trying to approach this in an anti-capitalistic or socialistic sense. No, this is purely from a biblical sense that hey, loans are good, and lend and helping out your fellow man and um, giving them the expectation that they pay it back is good. However, we're not trying to make people slaves to that debt. And again, there are people who live in those circumstances because they can't stop. They can't stop spending. They can't stop over leveraging themselves, and there's really no recourse for that other than get your daggone financial house in order. It's, it sucks. um, Freeing servants. If any of your people, Hebrew men or women, sell themselves to you and serve you 6 years, in the seventh year you must let them go free. And when you release them, do not send them away empty handed. Supply them liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to them as the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That's why I give you this command today. But if your servant says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your family and is well off with you, then take an awl and push it through his earlobe into the door, and he will become your servant for life. Do the same for your female servant. Do not consider it a hardship to set your servant free, because their service to you these 6 years has been worth twice as much of that as a hired hand. And if the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do, and the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. Okay, interesting part here. So basically, what we're kind of looking through is indentured servitude to some point. Yeah, an indentured servitude, um, where they are selling themselves to you, or they owe you something, and they're um, working as your servant. Um, when it's time to let them go, you don't just kick them out the door. Hey, you give them almost like a severance package, and a very generous one. This is where a lot of people want to put politics into the Bible when they talk about how rich people go to hell, rich people are not living a godly life. That's not true. There's a lot of rich people out there who are very godly and very generous, and very um, and have very righteous hearts that go out there and will freely spend their money on charity, on their employees, and many of those and to their church and to missions. I think that's admirable. I think that's part of what the spirit of what he's talking about in this chapter so far. Not just with you know letting your servant go free, but also when we talk about the poor and the sick among you. Look, and in the chapter beforehand, hey, take your tithe, go do a feast with them, give your tithes to the poor and the sick and the needy and all this, and be charitable, be loving, because the things that you're being blessed with are worldly things. It's nice to have, and you're enjoying it. Make sure to take those blessings and spread them among your community, because we're all God's people, right? It's a smaller community in that case, in this time period, because we're just talking about the Israelites. Nowadays, it's the Christian community at large. It's the world community, I guess. If you want to lump, be very outward and very giving. You can talk about that. And it tells them, it's like, look, if your servant says, hey, look, I like what I've got here. What I've got here is a good thing. You're very well off. You're very generous. You're a good person. You're a good boss. I really like it for you. Like it here. Let me stay for life. Go ahead. You're kind of marking them so that other people know, hey, this is what this agreement means, and they get to stick with you for life. And then kind of everybody wins in that case. That's another portion where people talk about slavery in the Bible. This isn't really one of those portions. We're talking about servants, indentured servitude. It's a very different thing, and it's very in many cases, it's very voluntary in the Bible when we're talking about these type of servants. We'll see parables from Christ about this and other things and other references, but this is what they're talking about. Either somebody's basically going into servitude for debt, to pay off the debt, or they're just struggling and they feel like this is the best way to make ends meet or provide for themselves. Provide for themselves is to get themselves working for somebody as a servant, which is cool, right? Like I said, everybody wins. You don't need to be showered with blessings, financial blessings, to have a happy life. There's many people out there who will tell you they're happy. It's always nice to have more money, they would say, but at the same time, they're happy with what they've got. I'm very blessed. I'm very, very blessed. Me and my family are very blessed, and both financially and spiritually. And like I said, I should do a better job spreading that around. Firstborn animals. So how we'll close out. Is set apart for the Lord your God every firstborn male of your herds and flocks. Do not put the firstborn of your cows to work, and do not shear the firstborn of your sheep. Each year, you and your family are to eat them in the presence of the Lord your God, the place he will choose. If an animal has a defect, is lame, or is blind, or has any serious flaw, you must not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You are to eat it in your own towns. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat it, as if it were a gazelle or a deer. But just not eat the blood. Pour it out on the ground like water. There you go. Cook your food. Don't eat your food rare. I'm telling my two buddies they like to eat their food rare. I was getting on their case about it. I don't mean that seriously. I just do it to give them grief. Because they eat that stuff kind of bloody. Anyway, so that's Deuteronomy 14 and 15. And I think that they get a little deep here once we get past some of the food laws, which, like I said, I want to really do a deep dive into that on episode or two with somebody who's way more knowledgeable about it, done more research into it, both the history and the why we don't do it anymore as Christians, as most Christians. Like I said, some people still do, but I think that talking about tithing, talking about debts, servitude, this kind of stuff. This kind of makes people a little uncomfortable in their seats when you start to discuss it, because you're like, yeah, look, if you're not meeting your obligations, like, I'm not going to tell you you're a terrible person, but because who am I? I wouldn't be. I'm not in a position to tell you that, right? I'm telling you that this is something I struggle with as well. However, we need to remember, me as well. We need to remember that we are blessed. Maybe not financially, but we are all blessed in the fact that we have Christ's sacrifice to us, And if that's not worth tithing tithing towards, I don't know what is. Um, and it's something to work towards. It's something to work towards. And God will talk, and we'll see Jesus talk about this more once we roll into the Gospels. But it's important to remember from the beginning of the Bible, we see tithing in some shape, some way, shape, or form. Um, and once Israel gets established, we see it very much put into play. So, with that said, um, man, again, I'm just wore out tonight. So, I'm going to go ahead and end it. 35 minutes, not bad for what we were talking about. We got some good content in there. So, if you like what you're hearing, if you're interested in following along and you haven't already, like and subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment. Tell me how I'm doing. Tell me what you agree with, what you disagree with. Tell us an account that you have, and I will be sure to get involved in this and comment back to you when you leave that comment. Because, like I said, I'm gonna get. This is just me reading and reacting. I'm gonna get these things wrong, and it's important. It's important to remember those things, and also to remember that when you fall short, and when you screw up, which we all do, is to remember. Look, it's not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. Pick yourself up, drive on. Let other people pick you up, help you out. It's part of the community. But anyways, like, subscribe, comment, share with anybody you think you might need to feel like might enjoy this, and we will pick up later. But with that said, everybody, have a good evening, good night, and God bless.